All right, so we are on another episode of Being Well with Beth, and today we are going to talk about lessons learned from community college experience. So myself, along with the two others I have here today, attended a community college, and so we're just going to talk about our experiences, some of the lessons learned, what it coulda, shouldas. So without further ado, I will have the two of you introduce yourself and maybe give a little bit of background of where you went to a community college, and if you transferred, provide whatever information you would like to provide.
You can go, Katie.
Well, I'm Katie. I work at Harper as a lead academic advisor. I also attended Harper before transferring to Southern Illinois University.
Woo!
My name is Sara Piraino. I am the other lead academic advisor at Harper. I also went to Harper, so I've been there on and off since about 2003. When I was a student, after I graduated at Harper, I attended Indiana University for my bachelor's. I went to Argosy for my master's, and then I completed my doctoral program through Ferris State University.
Awesome. And I attended Kirkwood Community College, which is a community college located in Iowa. So tried and true Iowan here. And I played volleyball at Kirkwood and then transferred to a private 4-year, and then eventually went on to get my master's at the University of Iowa. So yeah, I think I'm jumping around here already, but what drew you to Harper to begin with, if either of you want to jump in there?
Yeah. I'll go first this time. So my mom actually worked at Harper for 21 years. And so when I was growing up, I went to InZone at Harper. I was really familiar with the campus, being there with my mom. And I loved the idea of being able to stay at home. I was not the type that really wanted to go away to a 4-year school. I knew that I wanted a college experience, but what drew me to Harper was the fact that I wouldn't have any student loans. I could still live at home with my parents, and it would be an opportunity for me to still get a really good education. So that was what initially drew me to Harper.
Awesome. What about you, Katie?
Yeah, so I was in a similar, well, no, I don't have family that worked at Harper, but similar as far as the financial benefits, really the ability to save, a good amount of money while going to Harper because I could still live at home, which was really nice. I was able to work. And I actually did work at Harper while I was attending Harper, which worked out really well for me, obviously, because I'm still working there. But I think, at the time, a little bit different. At the time, it just made more sense for my family financially for me to go to a community college. And so I was really grateful that I had that opportunity to still be able to, get that college experience while staying at home.
Yeah. And I would say my story probably resonates with the two of yours, is that I knew that I was going to have to pay for my own college. And so the financial barrier was definitely something I had to think about. And so a community college definitely fit my financial plan a little bit more. But also I wanted to pursue athletics. And so Kirkwood was a wonderful opportunity for me to join athletics there. And also I was still in Iowa, so couldn't venture too far from home quite yet. But yeah, that's kind of where I started. And then I would say the third thing for me is I just didn't know what I wanted to do yet. So I didn't want to spend the money to go to a large institution or somewhere else that was a lot of money when I wasn't quite certain 100% what I wanted to do. So kind of similar to what some of you all shared. So with that, I'm just going to get straight to the punch here is, what are some stereotypes you often heard or continue to hear prior to taking classes at a community college, and how were some of those expectations maybe untrue for you in terms of your own experiences at a community college?
So you know how there's some memories that just like stand out in your mind, even though they're like from forever ago? So my senior year in high school, I was doing like a secondary education internship at the high school. I was paired up with my English teacher. And I remember he asked me, it was like October-ish of that senior year. He goes, what are you doing next year? And I said, well, I'm going to Harper. And I remember like where we were sitting, the look on his face, and he said, oh, you're going to Harper? And that was the first time I really felt like almost embarrassed about choosing a community college. And he said, why don't you give some thought to Northern or Illinois State and these popular 4-year schools? And I knew, again, wasn't what I wanted, but I wasn't in a place personally where I could really stand up and push back. And he said, it's not like a real college. You're not getting the same experience, the same education. And I heard that like real college term so much. But when I got to Harper, I had fabulous instructors. And I mean, instructors who taught at UIC and NIU and all of these colleges that our students transfer to, getting the exact same education. And so for me, when people would say, well, you're not really getting the best education, I got probably the best education I could have, and still was able to end up without student loans and getting involved. And I don't think I would be anywhere close to where I am today if I would have started somewhere else. And similar to what you said, you were, undecided. I was very decided on what I wanted to do. It's gonna be a high school English teacher, no questions. Clearly, that's not where I'm at today. And so Harper allowed me to do some of that changing of my major, without feeling like I wasted all of this time and money and it put me so far back. So it ended up being a really good experience, but I don't think everybody sees that until they're in the environment.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely experienced some similar things, right? Going through as everyone's planning what their next steps are going to be. Friends who didn't, when I said where I was attending, they were like, "Oh, you're planning that?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's my plan." And I think, for me, it was also kind of a last minute switch a little bit at the end too, which ended up working out really well because of the added flexibility to be able to jump in, and attend Harper when I did. Because I also, right to you guys' point, I was also undecided going in. I had 2 majors I was thinking. I flip-flopped the whole first semester. I think I went through probably 8 or 9 majors while attending Harper.
For sure.
That I, wasn't sure of until I transferred out. But it really, that the idea that it's not a real college, sometimes I still hear it circulating, and it's not the case. It is community colleges. You're going to get the same education, a great education with some other added benefits that you may not get at some of the other institutions.
Yes, and both of when both of you were talking, I just want to be like, yes, that's totally my experience as well, because I remember also vividly where I was when I was in high school, and I told a classmate of mine where I was going for college, and he goes, "Well, that's not a real school." And so I think for me, when I entered, I was kind of nervous of saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm not going to a real school." And so when I got my first test back, I remember in one of the classes, and I didn't do well. It's because I didn't know how to study. I didn't know those study skills. And so in my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to a real school. What's going to happen when I transfer? And so I think for me, when I did transfer to my 4-year and I succeeded there and I did well, part of me was like, well, maybe this isn't a real school either. And it finally took till going to grad school where I was like, oh my gosh, like they're all real schools. Like I'm succeeding, I'm doing well. And my community college experience, I got a valid and a really good education just as much as I did at a Big Ten. And so I think when you're talking, especially Sara, I had so many people tell me that of like, it's easier, you're not going to a real school. And for me, it wasn't. I mean, the classes that I took, I still had to study. I still had to get to know my professors. And if not, I got to know my professors more at a community college. And then I really had to work hard and study. And so I think that really resonated with me.
Well, I think that's one of the important things that you said. I had some struggle points during my time at Harper, and I was able to just stay after class and let, the 20 students ahead of me pass out before I talked to my instructor. I visited 4-year schools where there are, 200, 300, 400 students in a classroom, and you never talk face to face to your instructor. My instructors at Harper knew my name. They knew what I was doing. They had a really vested interest in my education. And I think that was one of the most important things that I got, was the opportunity to connect with professors who are excellent in their fields and really good educators, because it helped me be a better student.
Right. And it kind of segues into my next question, which the two of you sort of touched on, is what were some of the positives that you experienced from your experience at the community college, Harper in your case, but also flip side of that, are there any negatives or any not so great experiences for you?
So I'll go first for this one. I would say positives. I definitely I agree. I think the smaller classroom, the fact that it felt like I felt comfortable, like I was a person and I was seen in the classroom, which was really nice compared to some of my friends who, would tell me stories of their freshman year at college. And it was really nice too, because, the more that I was in different areas, the more I got to know even the people who worked at Harper that weren't necessarily my instructors. And I knew they were there to support me. And I got really comfortable with where things were and locating classrooms and, navigating, which was great. It was also just a great space to transition though into being more self-supporting as a student.
Mm.
There was the resources there to support me and help me, but I also had the opportunity to grow personally, which I think was really great. That I had that it was a nice combination. So it made the perfect transition as I was getting ready to then move to, say, transferring out. And I went to Southern, so I was 6 hours away from family and friends. So it was really nice to have those years where I kind of transitioned into being self-sustaining, time management skills, that sort of thing, where I had the additional support at Harper.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, so for me, I think one of the biggest positives was working at Harper. So I started there as a evening receptionist. I worked as a student aide. I was an administrative assistant. And like Katie said, getting to know people across the college for me developed my passion and love for working in higher ed. And I don't think if I had started working at a community college, I would have seen that as much. So the small classrooms, getting to know everybody, how close it is to home, it just was a wonderful experience. I do, however, think that for me, like I didn't go away like Katie did. So I took my classes through Indiana online, Argosy, all the way through my doctorate. It was all online or blended. So I never went away and I lived at home until I was very recently. And so, some of those things, I think that I would have liked to have maybe done a little bit more. When you go away to a school, you're sometimes forced into those situations where you're self-supporting and you're kind of doing things on your own. And I think that I should have taken more opportunities to do that within my safe space of attending. But all of the positives far outweighed, me staying at home for as long as I did. I just think it was a really great opportunity to also connect with students who were in similar situations. Maybe they were working while they were in school, attending Harper. And so I made great friends and connections and people that, still work at Harper today that taught me in the classroom, that I'm so grateful that I had my starting out at that point, because it's led me, to where I am now.
Right. And I think for me too, it was helping to build that confidence as well. Like I mentioned, I felt like I wasn't going to a real school. And so I remember, calling home and my mom, like, I'm going to be done after 2 years. Like, I can't do this. I'm not cut out for this. And I remember one of my professors, I was taking her psychology course, and I remember her coming up to me after class one time and she was like, hey, you would be a really good candidate for graduate school. And I was like, me? Or like what, the person behind me? Like, not me. Like I'm not, for graduate school. I'm just gonna be done after 2 years. And so I think for me, it was getting to know those professors on a more personal level where they helped me build that confidence that I needed to take that next jump. But also I met some of my best friends. I've been in their weddings. I have met lifelong friends and relationships, whether through work study or coaches or friends that I met, and have really helped me in my career and maybe get to that next step. And so I think a lot of times people say community college is boring, there's nothing to do there. And I always push back on that because I had the best time ever and met some of the coolest people. So thank you. So the next question, thinking back on your own experiences, is there anything that you would have done differently if you could do it all over again, and maybe you don't?
Yeah, I think everyone, right? There's something that they're like, I should have done that. I definitely think in my time at community college, and even I'd say, as I transitioned into a 4-year institution, so it really didn't change. It was me as a student, not the school I was attending. I just didn't get as involved as I should have.
Right.
Like, I worked at the school, and even at my 4-year, I picked up a student aid position and worked there. I really, though, regret that I didn't get involved into like a club and start participating actively in events until really close to my senior year of college. And I could have, met so many more people. And kind of to your point, Beth, right? those friends that you make, I could have expanded that group so much more and learned so much more about myself if I would have gotten more involved on campus. And
Right.
it's kind of one of those regrets, because now working still at Harper, I see like all of the amazing student involvement stuff that I could have done,
Right.
should have done, but didn't do. And all the resources I could have taken advantage of. Like the tutoring center definitely should have popped in there way more than I ever did. The library, like those are things that I look back and I'm like, those would have really helped me, been more successful, and probably gone even further and gotten more out of my classes than I did without them.
Right. What about you, Sara?
I don't, probably similar to what Katye said, but more on the resources side. There just was so much, and still is so much, available to students at Harper that I don't think many of them even scratched the surface. And that was definitely me. I mean, tutoring center, writing center, all of the things that we have available for free to students. I just don't think I took as much advantage of it, probably because I was still in that high school mentality where, they would tell you if you really needed some resources. And so that kind of hands off was like, oh, well, I'm doing fine, So I definitely probably would have gotten, more use out of the services, maybe gotten involved a little bit more. But I think overall, all the lessons that I learned at the community college are what, brought me to what I know now. So, I mean, I'm grateful for all the opportunities I had there. But definitely it's always, hindsight, things you could have done differently.
I wish I would have studied abroad, whether it be at the community college or the next school that I went on to, because I can't do that as an adult now. Like I could travel, but you can't take that amount of time off.
I went on a study abroad trip for my doctoral program. We went to Finland.
Nice.
And we talked about that all the time. I was like, I would have gone on study abroad, community college, undergrad, grad school. I don't care where it would have been. That's probably my biggest regret. I would have loved to have studied abroad more.
So back to the benefits of going to college. Because I went to community college, I was able to study abroad when I transferred because I had saved some money.
Yes.
It worked out really well. But another example of something I didn't know we do study abroad, right?
Right.
Just offer study abroad programs, and they're just not something that's thought of. And I could have studied abroad twice, maybe. I don't know. But like there's so many places to go and so much to experience. And it's just, to Sarah's point, a lot of times we just don't even scratch the surface of what's offered to us at a resource like a community college.
And same thing, what you said earlier, Katye, is that I wish I would have taken advantage of all the resources and the different events and opportunities that I played volleyball. So granted, I was a student athlete, so I had a busy schedule, but I wish that I would have still gotten outside of that little cohort that I had already and maybe, taken advantage of some of those events that were happening on campus or met some other friends outside of that little group. But for the most part, like you said, Sara, all of my choices sort of led me to where I'm at now. So for better or for worse, but yeah, that study abroad thing, I wish I would have done. So next question here is, looking back on your experiences, what advice are you glad that you took when attending a community college? And is there any advice you wish you wouldn't have taken?
Definitely some good advice that I took was registering early. The benefit of being at a community college is that you can, for the most part, pick the days and times of your classes. And I went my 2 years at Harper only taking classes Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8 to 3. And so I registered first day and was able to have 3 full days off, essentially, working in the office, but not attending classes. And so those tips about registering and scheduling early helped me to have a really nice schedule that worked out for me. I don't think there was any poor advice that I took, but I think I wish I would have been more confident. Like when students would come home, around Thanksgiving, they'd be wearing their like ISU shirts or their hoodies. And I was almost embarrassed to wear my Harper apparel. Whereas now, I represent them every day. But back then, I would have taken more ownership of what my choice was to go there. But definitely the scheduling and registering early, that's the best advice I got. And I would continue to share that with any students I meet with.
Yeah, I think scheduling early is great advice. I think, some of the best advice I got was to go to a community college.
Yes.
Because there was, there's always a debate and a discussion about the pros and cons of everything. And so that, advice that maybe this time this makes the most sense for us and you. And it was true. It made the most sense and it was the best option. And I don't regret it for a second. Bad advice, I don't think I really got any other than, having that thought of, oh, kind of back to the whole, is it a real college type of thing? Like, oh, maybe I don't have to try as hard. Yes, I do. Yes, I
Right.
do.
Yep.
Just as hard in all the classes, if not, harder, because you're going to show up and the teacher's going to know, and they're going to see you and say something, and, which is great that you develop that relationship with your faculty. So that was probably the worst advice I got, was that some classes are easy. No, that's not really.
Yes.
The student, some classes might feel easier, but there's nothing really that I would consider an easy class that someone could take. So,
and I think sometimes it's harder because for me at least, I got to know the professors, and so if you skipped class, like, they knew, and so they're like, "Where are you been?" And I'm like, "Oh crap," So I think I was held more accountable for a lot of different reasons, but I thought it was harder that way. Like, I couldn't just slip out in the lecture hall or anything like that.
And it's funny you say that. Katye and I both teach the first year seminar class, and I would see my students in the hallway who missed like an 8 a.m. And I think instructors at a community college really do care. When they see you, they want to make sure that everything was okay. There's no support that they can provide. So it's making you more accountable, but I think it's also making students know and remember that there's people here that care, and we want you to be successful.
And I love what you said earlier to Sara about wearing your community college like loud and proud, because I was a student athlete, so I felt like I did wear it a lot, but I think initially going to college, I was a little bit embarrassed to say that I was going there, but I wish I would have kind of pushed back on that narrative a little bit more and accepted that, like, no, this is like a cool, rad place, and I am a better person because of it, and I will go to my grave saying that going to Kirkwood Community College was one of the best decisions I could have ever made for myself. And to your point as well, Katye, is that I'm so glad that my sister told me to consider going to a community college, because neither of my parents went to college. She was the first person to go, and then she's like, consider a community college. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what this is. I don't know what the difference is, but I'm really glad that I took that advice, because it was a really good decision I made. So one of the last questions that I have for you all is, do you have any advice for students who might be thinking about taking classes at a community college, or for students who might already be taking classes at a community college?
I would definitely say, take heed of mine and Katie's advice that we never listened to. Use the resources that are there for current students. We have so much support that we can give you, that can be provided, stuff that you might not even be aware of. And so please just reach out, use the resources. If you're not sure about something, ask. Everybody that works at a community college is there because they believe in the mission. If you talk to most people that work at a community college, they either went to that community college, they've been there for 25 plus years. It becomes a home and a lifestyle for a lot of people. So, students should be aware that we're here to help. For students who are interested, come visit the campus, meet with somebody from admissions and take a walk around and see, how you feel when you're walking from building to building and what catches your eye. Don't always just listen to the advice or recommendations of friends or, family members, but go and take advantage of it being in your community, and that you can go and see it. And then, talk to people who work there.
Yeah, I'd kind of reemphasize that same message. Take advantage, right, of the resources at your community college, and, participate and get involved in your college, because there's a lot of stuff that people always think of as traditional college items, but you can still do all of those wonderful things at your community college. You just get the benefit of still being in a home location, of saving some money, but you still have the same great education and same great opportunities. So take advantage of them and reach out, kind of to Sara's point, right? We have great advisors and services throughout the campus, and everyone on campus wants to help our students be successful. So reach out, ask anybody, and they'll point you in the right direction if it's not them.
Right.
That's best advice.
Yeah, and I think I also thinking of it as like a lifelong learning opportunity. Like I started to take some Spanish classes at Harper in the spring and summer, and then now the fall, because that's something that I also wish I would have done. I wish I would have minored in Spanish, but here I am, and it's an affordable option even as an adult. And so I think, thinking about community colleges, maybe you're not going back full time, but maybe you want to take a couple of classes to help you with your career, or to maybe take that next step on where you want to go. But also, the writing center was like the biggest hidden gem for me, where like one of my professors was like, you get extra credit if you go to the writing center. I was like, what is this? And then like someone helped me like make my paper better, and I didn't have to pay anybody. Like it was free, and I got a better grade on it. So I was like, wow, like why didn't I discover this earlier? So go to the writing center for your papers.
Well, yeah, I'd kind of also add to that, librarians. It wasn't until later in my education that I realized that I could go talk to a librarian and they'd help me like put together resources, which made papers and all that so much easier and so much more manageable, and less overwhelming to know that I had that support. So we have that at community colleges, and it's important to reach out to get it.
Like places like the Job Placement Resource Center, like they'll help you put together a resume. Like when you're an adult, like you have to pay people to do that for you, and you have to pay people to check your papers, and you have to pay people to do all these like services. So it's like, get in like on those services from the beginning, because you're going to save yourself a lot of money in the long run.
I have so many friends who went away to four-year schools and struggle with the job search. And I tell them, Harper alumni, current students, this is free.
Yeah.
And they do awesome work with resumes and cover letters. I mean, you're right. I paid a lot of money to have my dissertation read through and reviewed. And we just have these free services for students, and it's so awesome. And also like they're approachable. There's usually not a long line. I mean, you get really good service at any office you go to.
Absolutely. So I just want to thank you for your time today. I could talk about community colleges for anyone who would listen. And so I'm just glad to share my enthusiasm with the two of you, and to also learn from your experiences. So thank you for being here with me today and sharing your experiences with students and the entire campus community. So thank you.
Thank you. It was great to be on here.
Thank you.